September 2, 1967. Route 19, Central Highlands. A 39-vehicle convoy runs into an ambush. The NVA hit it with mines, recoilless rifles, and automatic weapons. The engagement lasts 10 minutes. 7 Americans are killed. 17 are wounded. 30 vehicles are destroyed. 0 enemy casualties. Not one. 11 weeks later on the same road, the same enemy ran the same ambush against the next convoy. The engagement lasted 20 minutes. 41 of them were dead when it was over. Nothing changed about the road. Nothing changed about the enemy's tactics. What changed was what American truck drivers, not infantry, not special forces, but supply clerks and mechanics had bolted into the beds of their cargo trucks without asking anyone's permission. September 2, 1967. Route 19, Central Highlands, Republic of Vietnam. A 39-vehicle convoy from the 8th Transportation Group, 54th Transportation Battalion, is returning empty from Pleiku to Canaan. 110 miles of mountain switchbacks and dense jungle canopy. Protection, 2 M151 gun jeeps with a single M60 machine gun, music each. At 18:55 hours, a fuel tanker near the rear develops mechanical trouble and stalls. It splits the convoy in half. 500 m of open road between the front vehicles and the rear. That gap is all the invitation an NVA company needs. Music. Command detonated mines detonate simultaneously along the column. 57 mm recoilless rifle rounds follow. The lead gun jeep is destroyed by the first shot. Driver J.D. Calhoun, 8th Transportation Group, remembers the exact moment his mind caught up with what was happening. He said, "Oh crap, I can't sit in a truck. I've got to get out and get behind something." He had an M14 rifle. No training in ambush response. No idea what the standard operating procedure was because there was not one. A reaction force from the 1st Cavalry Division was located less than a mile away. It took them 15 minutes to arrive by helicopter. By then, it was over. 7 Americans killed. 17 wounded. Approximately 30 vehicles destroyed. 0 enemy casualties found. The NVA withdrew without losing a single man. From the cab of any truck running Route 19, American drivers could see something that should have told them everything they needed to know. French grave mounds scattered along the roadside, remnants of groupement mobile 103,000 soldiers, music, annihilated on this same road in June of 1954. They were destroyed in a series of running ambushes through the mountain passes that the French had called Route Coloniale 10 and the Americans now called Route 19. One newly arrived driver remembered his shotgunner, a history major back home, quietly recounting the whole story as they drove through Mangyong Pass. Great news for a soldier with no combat training and not enough ammunition. The fundamental problem on Route 19 was physics. NVA forces ambushed from inside heavy jungle. An M60 round fired into thick canopy would embed in a tree trunk, deflect off bamboo, and lose energy in the foliage. You could put an entire belt of 7.62 mm rounds into that jungle, and the men behind the trees would never feel it. The V-100 Commando armored cars that arrived in mid-1967 were underpowered and mechanically unreliable. Veterans would later call them death traps. Music. The M151 gun jeeps carried weapons that could not reach through the cover the enemy was standing behind. Nothing in the convoy's organic inventory could solve the problem. Nothing. That is, until Colonel Joe Bellino, commanding officer of the 8th Transportation Group, looked at what September 2nd had cost and made a decision. He was going to arm his truck drivers. He was not going to ask permission. The weapon Bellino reached for wasn't designed for this. The W.L. Maxon Corporation of New York built the M45 quad mount in 1942 to shoot aircraft out of the sky. Music. 4 M2 HB Browning heavy barrel machine guns mounted in a single electrically powered turret with traverse, elevation, and firing, all controlled by one man through 2 hand grips and a reflex sight. 1 canvas seat surrounded by the 4 barrels pointing in every direction. Designed to track a fast-moving target across a clear blue sky. What the Army discovered in Europe and confirmed in Korea was that the weapon did something to infantry that no anti-aircraft gun was supposed to do. Music. It erased the terrain between the gunner and the target. At maximum cyclic, for barrels fired simultaneously produced roughly 2,300 rounds per minute. Music. 40 rounds per second. Not a burst. A sustained, continuous roar that veterans consistently describe not as individual gunfire, but as a single wall of sound. A physical thing you feel in your chest before you process it as noise. And the round it fires is the .50 caliber BMG, a projectile that has been punching through engine blocks since the First World War. Music. An M60 round embeds in a tree trunk. The .50 BMG cuts the tree down. Four of them simultaneously do not suppress the jungle. They remove it. In Korea, the Chinese People's Volunteer Army attacked in human waves. Thousands of soldiers advancing across open ground at night. They snorts, logic being that sheer mass would overwhelm defensive positions before they could be adequately engaged. The M45 broke those attacks. Not by suppressing them, by physically destroying the men making them. The Army converted 1,200 half-tracks to carry them out. The men who watched what those guns did to infantry in the open gave it a name. The meat chopper. That name was earned before Vietnam. Before Route 19. Before anyone imagined bolting the thing into the back of a cargo truck. In the summer of 1967, before the September disaster, Colonel Bellino and Lieutenant Colonel Philip N. Smiley were already experimenting with armed trucks. After September 2nd, experimentation became directive. Lieutenant Colonel John Burke, commanding the 27th Transportation Battalion, ordered construction from pre-cut steel plating he had already requisitioned that summer. The M55 trailer was the standard platform for the M45, a proper two-wheeled towed mount designed for static anti-aircraft positions. In the 8th Transportation Group's maintenance yards, crews pulled the mount off its trailer and bolted it directly into the bed of an M54 5-ton 6x6 truck. The Army had a proper system. The men in the shops decided the truck was faster. Battalion commanders directed the builds. Company commanders picked the crews. Then they stepped back and let the mechanics decide what the trucks became. One of those crews would eventually receive a Medal of Honor for what they did aboard one of these trucks. That story is coming. But first, what the weapon actually did the first time an ambush walked into one. November 24, 1967. 11 weeks after September 2nd. Same road, same enemy, same jungle passes. The first hardened convoy equipped with improvised gun trucks rolled west through Ambush Alley. The North Vietnamese Army attacked as they had attacked every convoy before with command-detonated mines, recoilless rifle fire, and concentrated automatic weapons from covered positions in the tree line. What came back at them was different. Not the crack of M60 machine guns. Not the flat report of rifle fire. A wall of sound that does not stop. 20 minutes of .50 caliber fire pouring into the jungle on both sides of the road. Not suppressing the ambush. Dismantling it. 4 gun trucks working the tree line. The rounds going through the first row of trees, and through the second row, and through whatever was behind the second row. 41 Viet Cong confirmed dead. 4 captured. 2 Americans killed. 17 wounded. Colonel Bellino's after-action report was direct. The quick reaction and firepower of this convoy were the only factors that prevented this ambush from being a success. The North Vietnamese Army's entire ambush doctrine on Route 19 was built on a single assumption, that the convoy's firepower could not reach them through the gun truck Brutus, explained the shift in the simplest possible terms. With an M2.50 caliber machine gun, we simply cut the tree down. An ambush position that was functionally impervious to everything else the convoy carried could be systematically destroyed by a Quad-50 in seconds. The jungle that had made Route 19 a killing ground for 3 years was not a defense anymore. It was just wood. That was November. By January, the gun trucks were running missions beyond Route 19. January 31st, 1968. Hugh City. The opening morning of the Tet Offensive. Music. Sergeant Bob Laver, G Battery, 65th Artillery, was crewing a single Quad .50 truck in support of Marine operations when a Marine officer approached him near the Nguyen Hong Bridge over the Perfume River. The Marines were trying to reach the besieged MACV compound. Men were dying on the deck. The officer's request was not complicated. He asked, "Sarge, my men are getting the hell shot out of them. Can you help them out?" Laver looked at his crew. Private First Class Theodore Harris. Davis. David. He remembers what each of them was thinking. There was never any thought to say no. But I think that each of us told ourselves that we were not going to make it back from this one. They drove the Quad-50 truck onto the bridge into direct fire. Dead and wounded Marines lined both edges of the deck, men using the bodies of their dead as cover to keep shooting. At the north end, Lover opened on NVA positions in the multi-story buildings across the river. Music. He watched his tracers go through the first wall of a concrete bunker. Through the second wall, he watched them strike sparks, music, off the surface of the Perfume River beyond. When the firing stopped, the bunker was a pile of sand. An NVA soldier appeared at the corner of that position with a grenade. Lover later described what came next with the particular dry humor of a man who has had a long time to think about how close it was. He said he yelled grenade, and they all jumped off the truck and took cover beneath the truck bed. Music. He remembers hiding behind the dual wheels of the truck shooting at this NVA with an old Smith & Wesson .38 caliber revolver. All the while, there were 4 perfectly good .50 caliber machine guns over his head. The grenade was a dud. Sergeant Lover received a Silver Star and his second Purple Heart. His 3 crew members received Bronze Stars with the V device. Surviving Marines of Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines told him later they believed fewer of them would have been alive without that one Quad .50 on that bridge. The men of the 359th Transportation Company, 27th Transportation Battalion, had their own truck. They called it Brutus. Specialist 4 Larry Gilbert Dahl had not originally crewed it. He and 3 friends, Ronald Mallory, Charles Huser, Richard Bond, had come to it the way men come to things that need doing. When the original Brutus crew was hit in November of 1970, 1 man was killed and 2 were badly wounded. Dahl's group volunteered from the motor pool. They cleaned the blood out of the gun box. They repaired the damage. They repainted the name. They wanted the enemy to see no signs of what the truck had already cost. Specialist 4 Dahl was 21 years old from Oregon City, Oregon. He had requested combat duty in Vietnam 3 times before his orders came through. February 23, 1971, at Khe Sanh, Route 19. 2 fuel convoys were heading west. A large North Vietnamese Army force ambushed the lead convoy at the top of the pass, disabling gun truck the Creeper with an RPG in the opening seconds. The 359th Transportation Company convoy halted at the base of the mountain. Gun trucks Brutus, the Untouchable, the Misfits, and gun jeep Lil Brutus raced up the mountain road into the active kill zone. Ambush had turned the pass into a battlefield. The ambush had been running for 30 minutes. Fuel tankers were burning. The lead convoy's crews heard Brutus's guns open up as it came around. Music, the bend. Their accounts later described morale improving significantly at that sound. 15 more minutes of fighting passed before the contact subsided. As the gun trucks began to withdraw, a hand grenade sailed into Brutus's gun box. Specialist 4 Larry Gilbert Dahl saw it first. He called a warning. Then he covered it with his body. He was killed instantly. Sergeant Hector Diaz, Ronald Mallory, and Charles Huser survived. The Medal of Honor was presented by Vice President Gerald Ford on August 8, 1974 at Blair House to Dahl's widow Michelle and his 6-year-old son Michael. Diaz's son, born 4 days after the action at Khe Sanh, found words for it years later. February 23, 1971 was only 4 days before I was born. Had you not jumped on that grenade for my dad and the others in that truck that day, he left the sentence where it belonged, unfinished. The NVA did not stop ambushing convoys. They studied the problem and adapted. Richard Kilblain, Transportation Corps historian and the definitive scholarly authority on convoy operations in Vietnam, documented the evolution. The first adaptation was targeting priority, destroy the gun truck before engaging the convoy. RPGs were retasked as the opening shot aimed at the most heavily armed vehicle in the column. The Creeper at Khe Sanh. Proud American destroyed by a B-40 rocket on Route 9 during Operation Lamson 719. Satan's Lil Angel destroyed in a night ambush on the same road. Richard B. Fraser killed. Chester Red Israel medevaced with severe wounds. The second adaptation was the Decoy, a first kill zone designed to draw gun trucks off the road with a second kill zone further ahead, waiting for the unprotected cargo vehicles trying to escape the first. The deterrent effect was real. It was also double-edged. Units that armed their trucks found the enemy letting their convoys pass to attack the weaker-looking ones following behind. Specialist 4 John Robert Krzazinski Sr., G Battery, 1st Battalion, 44th Artillery, who ran a Quad-50 truck along the DMZ at Dong Ha, described the gunner's reality without sentiment. When running those 4.50 caliber guns, you sat in a little chair with a quarter-inch steel around you. If the enemy hit you with their RPGs, you were dead meat. You were gone. A quarter-inch plate stopped fragments. It did not stop an AK-47 round. Music. The ready supply was 800 rounds for tombstone chests, each weighing 89 pounds. At maximum cyclic, those 800 rounds were gone in under 30 seconds. Loaders had to swap chests under fire in a moving truck during an active ambush, lifting 89 pounds of steel and brass over the side of a gun box while tracers came in from the tree line. The electrical system traverse elevation firing ran on two 6V batteries in Vietnam's 100% humidity. Corrosion found every connector. Moisture found every seal. If the power died, the mount was a very heavy pile of steel that could not rotate. During Operation Lam Son 719, the 523rd Transportation Company lost 3 gun trucks in under 30 days. Ace of Spades destroyed February 16th. Satan's Lil Angel destroyed February 20th. Proud American destroyed March 12th. Specialist 4 Robert Thorne was killed at the wheel. 2nd Lieutenant James Baird had his left arm taken by fragmentation. Music. Thorne, in the last seconds available to him, steered into the hillside instead of off the cliff edge. Music. He saved his crew. The Army never authorized a single gun truck. Specialist 4 Robert Thorne died in one anyway. After the 507th Maintenance Company was ambushed at Nasiriyah in March of 2003, 11 killed and 5 captured. American Music. Transportation soldiers in Iraq began building armed and armored trucks from music, scrap metal, plywood, and Kevlar blankets. The same improvisation, the same desperation, the same music, logic. Nobody else is going to protect us, so we will protect ourselves. 36 years after the 8th Transportation Group built the first gun trucks in the maintenance yards at Canaan, a soldier from a supply unit asked Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, music, why he had to dig through a landfill for scrap steel to armor his vehicle. The lesson that J.D. Calhoun's convoy had paid for in blood in 1967 had never been written into doctrine. Vietnam gun truck veterans were eventually consulted by Iraq-era soldiers directly. One generation of truck drivers, music, teaching the next what the institution had failed to preserve. One truck came home. On May 31, 1971, Captain Donald K. Voitritter, commanding officer of the 523rd Transportation Company, submitted a formal request to ship gun truck Eve of Destruction back to the United States. It arrived at Fort Eustis, Music, Virginia in July of that year. It is still there. Sammy C., rear gunner on Ace of Spades, did not talk about Vietnam for 30 years. After his son died in 2001, he spent a year building a full-scale replica of the truck from a surplus 5-ton, music, fabricating every piece of metal himself. When it was finished, his old crewmates drove it 700 miles to Branson, Missouri. They climbed back into their positions. C. passed away in 2018. The replica stood as a testament to what they had lived through. September 2, 1967. 7 dead. 0 enemy killed. The North Vietnamese Army withdrew without losing a man. What the truck drivers of the 8th Transportation Group decided in the weeks that followed was that the road was not going to keep working that way. They were right.